examples, you don't necessarily need this website to show you everything, but this will give you a good start of, the whole concept of Google hacking is finding information that's not supposed to be on the web, but Google's spiders have crawled to it because of inadequate permissions or whatever. So, I mean, I can't understate the power of these things. I mean, there are people that just put their, default installs on the thing. There's password lists. There's, one of my friends likes to search foreign governments for password. I mean, he's found all kinds of stuff that's available out there. And this is, of course, this is just using what's publicly available already out there. Information that's not necessarily supposed to be on the web. Yes? Are you going to have a lot of these links publicly available on your website or something? Yeah, we can post it online for you. And then don't discount also, and I'll add this here, don't discount using like Google Cache or like archive or Internet Archives. So some company has some sensitive data exposed on their website. They take it down and they think they're safe, but Google cached it maybe, or archives, are already online. So you may find some stuff out there, right? Take it away.
Using Firefox plugins and extensions, we've listed a couple here that we're going to talk about. The first one is what's called the Firefox Catalogue of Auditing Extensions, or FireCat. This is currently in a release 4, and it's available. And what this gives you is about 60 extensions, and it's continuously growing. So, and it's got them out in a nice, those of you that are familiar with the mind map format that lays them out, and I'll show you a screen here in just a second of what it looks like and talk to you just a little bit about it. And then we're going to talk about a couple of examples that we're going to walk through, not necessarily in the order shown here, but Passive Recon, Exploit Me, which is a group of exploit tools, and then a tool called Tamper Data that we find very useful. This here is kind of an eye test. This is the mind map for FireCat. And just to show you a couple of things that are there, if you're using proxies or web utilities, here's a grouping of those, and it shows you the plugins that you can get. Don't have to do all of them. You can do one or two, whatever you're familiar with. Then it talks about information gathering. These are the ones that have been pretty much the primary focus of what this talk is about. And as you can see, there are a number of sub-areas under there. Tools like location information, doing enumerating, fingerprinting, data mining, Googling, spidering. Next is doing security auditing. These things like proxies, web filters and stuff. These are kind of neat tools, and there's a lot of them, like you see, and the guy's constantly updating the site, updating the list as new plugins and stuff are made available. And then occasionally you do need to do some editing, so if you need to edit with Firefox or something, here's some Firefox extensions and plugins for doing that. And then network utilities. These are always quite useful, doing FTP, intrusion detection, sniffers, database, Wi-Fi. And then there's also some miscellaneous ones as well as some others. But neat site, do a search for the term FireCat on Google and it'll take you right there. You may get directed to a link that shows version 1.2. If you do, go back to Google, look at another one. I think it's the second link that shows up now is version 1.4, which is the latest release.
We wanted to, like we said, we got 3 examples of and this is certainly not an exhaustive list of the best stuff out there. This is just 3 things that we picked that we think are kind of cool. The first one is actually a series of 3 extensions called Exploit Me. There's 3 extensions. This was introduced at Sector in Toronto last year by the guys at Security Compass. They actually had a talk at Sector specifically for these tools. So if you want more details than I'm giving you here, download their talk from the Sector website. And you get a whole bunch of information. The first one is XSS Me, which is a cross-site scripting tool. It searches for cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. If you're a big fan of looking for cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, there's a website, xssed.com, It's basically a repository of XSS vulnerabilities. In fact, you can even sort them by page rank. So if you sort them, the number one that's going to come up is Yahoo. There's about 50 XSS vulnerabilities on different Yahoo pages. So pretty interesting site in terms of stuff that's already out there. The second one is SQL Inject Me. I'll show you a picture of this on the next slide. And this is, again, just testing SQL injection vulnerabilities. And then the third one is Access Me. And this is basically when you surf to a website that requires you to enter some sort of permissions to get to, Access Me will try to access the site without those permissions to see if there are permission vulnerabilities there. There's a couple tools that they're talking about releasing in the future: Web Service Me, Overflow Me, Enumerate Me, and Brute Force Me. So these may come out in the near future. Hopefully they're still working on them. Here's an example of XSS Me. It's a sidebar. You click on it and it's a sidebar and it comes up. And if you've got forms or if you've got forms in your web page, they're going to be listed on the sidebar. For example, the 2600 page has a form on the sidebar, or so it's displayed on the sidebar. And you literally just have to enter information, any valid information in the fields, and then you can test. There's a whole library of tests where you can just run through, you know, a series of tests, and then there will be a report to tell you this particular field or form was vulnerable to this particular exploit. So that's kind of cool. Now again, you click on that button to test, you realize what you're doing. You know, you're accessing somebody's website in a way it wasn't intended. You may be breaking the law. So I didn't click on this button, but you know, it's there. SQL Inject Me is the same sort of thing. You've got a sidebar that comes out, and any forms that are visible on the page will show up in the tabs, and you can simply, you know, test. You can test like the most common vulnerabilities, or you can test all the ones in the library. So literally, just click on it, and you'll get a report. And I mean, so is point and click the best way to go? Maybe or maybe not. But if you want to sit there and manually type, you know, whatever SQL strings you're trying to test, you know, instead of doing them one at a time, okay, this one works, this one doesn't work, this is going to do it all for you. This doesn't replace your, you know, the importance for you to learn this stuff yourself, but this helps you automate it a little bit. Also, a disclaimer that this isn't necessarily going to find every single vulnerability. There may be something out there that this doesn't find, but it's, you know, it's a good start. This is kind of like the Nessus scan. You know, it's going to find a lot of stuff, but it's not going to find everything, and it doesn't absolve you from digging deeper. The second one that I want to talk about is called Tamper Data. Tamper Data acts like a mini proxy server in your browser, and allows you to view and modify HTTPS headers as they're sent and returned to your computer. You can also trace times and responses and stuff like that. This is popular. Unfortunately, this has become popular for hacking e-commerce sites that don't do server-side validation. In other words, and I'll show you an example here. And then if you search, sadly, if you search on YouTube, you'll find that probably the most popular use for this is like changing the high score on like Flash-based games, so you have the high score. I mean, it's kind of silly, but
fun.
But it could be fun. And I can't see my screen here, but I'm going to try to give you just a small example. I'll also caveat this, that the example I'm giving you here is already a known website that's vulnerable. This is not the first time somebody's done this, and I'm not going to go through with it completely, but just to give you an example.
Okay.
Okay, there's a device called, you know what the TV Be Gone is. It goes through all the code. Well, there's another device called the Ninja Remote, and it gives you actually gives you a little bit more capability. You can actually change channels and change the volume and stuff like that. Well, this device, you can buy them on this page. So the links here are basically the more you buy, the cheaper they are. So the first one is 5 Ninja remotes for $49.95 plus shipping.